welcome. My name is Kim McNulty, and I'm Vice President of Regional Strategy for One Future Coachella Valley. And One Future helps facilitate the Regional College Fair Alignment Team. And it's that team who is bringing you this Next Think Big web portal and virtual webinar series to help our students prepare for college and career. So we are really excited that you're here tonight. We want to keep this sort of an informal conversation. So we have 4 wonderful panelists with us who are parents who've had students go through this, who can share their insights. And we've got a few questions that we've lined up for them to share about, but if you have questions that are sort of burning, please feel free to put them in the chat, and we will get them for you. So I'm going to just start off by sharing the Next Think Big website and give you a really short history. This event would normally have been a big regional college fair held at the Agua Caliente Casino with about 5,000 students and parents and 100 college reps, and we would have done it all in one night. But things changed this year, and so the team pivoted and has created this virtual resource, which I think in many ways will be better because this will be available to folks year-round 24/7, and we'll be able to continue to add to it and have it live sort of and grow with us. So I just wanted to take a second to introduce that to you so you know what that anchor resource is. And the web address is www.ntbweek.com, and it's for nextthinkbigweek.com. And so if you go to that web address, you will see what I'm sharing on my screen. And the first thing that pops up is all of the current events that are coming up. And webinars like the one tonight will be right here front and center. And each week, the new sessions that will be available will be here. You can click the registration and sign up and join us just like you're doing tonight. In addition, we're going to be posting virtual college fairs. So what we normally would have done with 100 colleges in the ballroom is now something you can access virtually. And the next one coming up is through NatCAC, and it's going to be on November 8th from 2 to 10. So you can go anytime in that section. They've got about 650 colleges from across the United States. You can sign up for appointments. So really encourage you to use that as part of your college exploration process. There are navigation bars across the top. If you have students, there's easy access to the counseling team at your students' high school. And then in addition, there are some resources that I wanted to draw your attention to because what we're going to be sharing tonight, you can go back and visit here. So in English and in Spanish, we have PDF copies of a resource guide that actually Lynette, one of our panelists, helped us create years ago, and we update it every year. So if you go into this document, you'll be able to find a wealth of resources. And this table of contents sort of introduces you to what's there. Everything from what A through G requirements are, if you're interested in UCs or CSUs or private schools or community colleges, you can get basic information there. Information about how to write your personal mission statement and the FAFSA and scholarships. And so I invite you to explore this, print it if you'd like, but just have it as a resource for your family. And as I said, that is available in English and in Spanish. And so that's all I'm going to do with that tonight, but I just wanted to encourage you to access that website and use it often, and we will get thank you for bringing that date correction to our attention. Any questions about that before we jump into our panel? Okay. So we are blessed tonight because we've invited 4 amazing moms who are going to share with us about the experience that they had getting their students to and through college. And so I'm going to introduce them just by name, and then I'm going to invite each of them to share a little bit about themselves and tell us where their students went to high school and where they ended up in college, and then we'll sort of jump into the conversation. So I'm going to start with Lynette Walmuth, and then Christina Gregorio, and Ida Haramasillo, and Maria Wren. So Lynette, can you share a little bit about who you are and your experience as a mom putting a student through college?
Hey, good evening, everyone. It's great to be here. Thank you for also showing up for your students. I was a middle school teacher for a very long time out in Coachella Valley Unified, And then I ran a program for about 10 years to help kids out in that district go to college, which was really eye-opening, and I learned a lot, probably more from that job than being a parent. Both of my kids went to Palm Desert High School. One graduated in 2010, and she ended up at Cornell back in New York, upstate New York. And my son Wes graduated in 2013 and probably should have gone to Chico State, but ended up at San Diego State. So there you go.
Very cool. Thank you. And Christina, share a little bit about what you're doing right now.
So my name's Christina Gregorio, and I'm actually with One Future Coachella Valley. Kim is my colleague, and Ernie and a few staff members here. And I'm actually also from the Coachella Valley. So I grew up here, went through the school districts here, and left for a while for San Diego. But I'm a mom, like my panelists here, and I'm actually in a different position because my daughter has not graduated from high school. However, given that I've been doing this 20 plus years, I've researched different programs and learned that concurrent enrollment, there's different programs out there that can help you and your child, help your child actually graduate with an AA or close to an AA when they complete their high school. So my daughter's currently enrolled at Elite Academic Academy, and I'm so glad that her teacher, Miss Nicole Lively, is on this webinar. So big shout out to her. And so hi. And so I've learned through the process that asking questions and, tons of resources with counselors and really planning it out is kind of one of your best friends. And so I'm in it right now, but my daughter's taken some college classes already, is currently enrolled. And the way we've mapped it out is she's going to graduate with about 58 to 60 units by the time she finishes her senior year. So I'm glad to share and eager to learn from our panel as well.
Great. Thank you so much, Christina. Ida, can you share?
Well, good evening. So nice to see so many people on this call. It says a lot about our communities and the investment to your students and families. So thank you. I want to start, before I tell you all about my past, I want to reassure you that first and foremost, we're all moms. And so we've been in your shoes. And so before I tell you that I do something similar to what Kim does in a similar organization, prior to that, my career was in finance. So I worked for Wells Fargo for 20 years before I even leaped into education. So, and the reason I share that is because you guys might be thinking, well, that's easy. They're all in education. And of course it's easy to help their children. But I thought it was important to share that prior to me navigating the education world, I came from Wells Fargo. So that was, other than my personal experience. But what I'd like to share too, unique, I have two children. One is currently enrolled at Yucaipa High School as a sophomore, and I have a senior standing at Cal State San Bernardino, about to finish his last 5 classes and walking hopefully in April or May, I guess. But the unique piece to this that I'd like to add is that I don't know if anyone on the call has special needs children or any children with disability, but my son became legally blind his senior year in high school. And so not only was navigating the college experience application process difficult, on top of a new disability to our family and to him to navigate, and facing many people telling him that going to college was probably not feasible and that he should probably not entertain that. So hopefully I have more opportunities to share, but I like to add that perspective because I think sometimes a lot of us face those silent giant obstacles in our life that don't make it any easier. So thank you so much.
Great, thank you, Ida. Maria.
Hello, everyone. My name is Maria Wren, and I too am a product of the Coachella Valley. And I attended school for all of my schooling years here at Desert Sand Schools. I myself am a Palm Desert High School alum, and I currently run a nonprofit running STEAM programs for youth all across the Valley. But even before that, I was someone who worked with youth in one way or another for the past 22 years. And so, that's actually something that happened intentionally. I want to say that when my husband and I found out about our first child, We actually lived in San Diego, and the first thing I said was, I want to go home because I feel like there is no better place to raise a child than here in the Coachella Valley. And our experience has proven that to me. I actually have 3 kids, but one is in elementary school still. The other 2, they are no longer living here at home because I have one who graduated from Humboldt State University in 2014, then went on to do a year at the Cal State campus here in Palm Desert to complete her teaching credential. And she is now working in Oceanside Unified. And my other child who has left our nest, he is currently in his 3rd year at Chico State. And I have to give a huge shout out to Miss Lynette Wilmoth, who, you know, both of my kids were very fortunate to attend Palm Desert High School just during that wonderful time when Lynette came to Palm Desert High School, and she helped them navigate so many of those waters. And so it was really nice to have her kind of as like a fail safe. So that's us.
Very cool. Thank you guys very much. So I shared the website, and there's a bunch of resources there. And if you dig into that resource guide, there's a bunch of resources, and it seems like everywhere you look, there are lots of things, people offering resources to help you plan this journey. And I think sometimes all of that wealth of information can kind of become overwhelming. So can you guys share a little bit about what resources were most helpful to you and your family as you began the college application and college going journey? And I'll turn it over to whoever wants to share first.
Gosh.
Any thoughts?
Lynette, do you want to go first?
I'll go first. I'm going to talk. Is it okay if I answer this question more as like when I'm helping kids? I mean, it was very different for me with my own kids, and I can talk about that later. But a big thing about there's a lot of different kinds of families, right? You have families that are first generation and nobody's ever gone to college. And you have families who both parents have gone to college. You have families where, you know, there's a single mom and you know, money is a big concern. So I think for any family who is considering embarking on this college journey, because it is a family decision, you have to think about what can we afford so that it's not going to stress out the family, you know, by sending someone to college. So it's really important to understand the financial aid piece. And a lot of times when I've talked to kids, you know, that's kind of like where we'll start. You know, you need to find out a little about the family. What's the situation, you know, because sometimes there's a big, you know, the parents may have one idea of what's going to happen and the student may have a completely other idea of what is going to happen. So just starting off by getting communication between the student and the parents, I think is an excellent thing to do. You know, it's kids kind of think, oh, I'm going to do this all by myself, you know, and they really don't know what their family's situation is. And it can be a little touchy, but I think it's really important. I think as a parent who's seen lots of kids go to college, and all of you, you know how much it costs. And it's, we can have conversations with parents to kind of put them at ease, kind of, you know, explain to them how all of this works, because the saddest thing is when you get a kid who thinks they're going to do one thing and then it doesn't happen because there was a lack of communication at home between the student and the parent. So I'll just kind of start off with that.
Awesome. So about communication early on about where you are, and then start looking at resources that are available. Christina or Ida or Maria, any thoughts on that?
I wanted to pick you.
Go ahead.
Go ahead. Go ahead, Ida.
No, I'll go after you. Go.
I wanted to piggy off of what Lynette said in terms of aligning goals. And really, you know, like I said, my daughter's still in high school. She's a junior now. And, you know, asking her like, you know, what does your future look like? And so aligning goals is a huge thing. I love planning. So I've had Milena keep a calendar or learn to plan her dates and look for the important dates of the year. So if there's one tip I can offer is really having your students plan their work with their plan. That's one. If there's a resource that I love and swear by, it's College Board, and it's really high school friendly because you can find just about anything on that particular site. And then honestly, I've really connected with counselors like Lynette, teachers like Miss Lively, and community college, colleagues, and asking them what's out there. And that's how I learned about concurrent enrollment. And that's how we figured out how to navigate that piece. But if it was a couple of things that I would say, it would be obviously figuring out your goals, looking for a particular tool that's going to help you get information and keep you on track. And then who's that person that you can talk to and bounce some of these struggles and ideas with? That's what I would want to share.
Great.
The only other piece I'd like to add to kind of complement both those comments is when it comes to the financial assessment, also the psychological preparation of your student to venture into college, and especially regarding that decision of a community college versus a four-year. Obviously cost is a big part of that decision, but also is how mature is your student, how ready they are to flood that nest. My son initially was supposed to go to ASU, then he considered NAU, and then everything that happened in his senior year with his health, we made probably one of the best decisions in our life was to keep him home, defer one semester, to kind of assess how he could adopt the learning with his visual impairment and what college was going to look like. Well, then he ended up deciding to stay home, stayed at Crafton for 2 years, and then transferred to Cal State successfully. And it would have cost him $60,000 a year to go to ASU. He's graduating debt-free. So I think that's important. And I think the first thing all parents do is like, you're in college, we'll figure it out. I don't know how we'll figure it out. Like, especially Hispanics, like, if they don't know and they're first gen, it's like, we'll figure it out. Well, we'll just get into college, right? But then when these kids are graduating with $100,000 in debt, defaulting on student loans, it's affecting even their employment into some organizations because of that financial impact. It's a bigger hit, right? So really thinking through that. But the maturity part is, those first 2 years are critical in the student's success through college. And I think if they're not ready and they end up going to this party atmosphere and, there's going to be things that are changing and going on around them in just a new world. But how do we know our students and our kids best? How do they react to what's happening around them, right? So are they the followers? Are they the leaders? Are they vulnerable? Are they outspoken or not? So really think about that, because now my son's a very extrovert person and, he's a great kid, but he tells me, he's like, I think if I would have gone straight to ASU, I may not be a senior right now, and just see what his other friends' experiences were. So I think it's important to think of your child's maturity level and how ready they are to embark living on their own on a four-year campus for the first time as well.
Excellent.
If I could add to that too, that really speaks to how I help to walk my kids through getting prepared to choose which colleges to apply to. And once they receive those acceptance letters, choose which one to actually commit to. You have to look at your child as a whole person. And one of the things that I told both of my kids was, it's not just about the college that you're going to, it's about the community that college is in and what that is like, because you're not just going to go to school there, you're going to live life there. And so my two kids went to two very different schools, even though they're both thought of as Northern California, and they're both thought of as rural areas. Humboldt is a little bit more of a place for people who like outdoorsy kinds of things. And so there was a big difference in my son, who is at Chico State. And, I'm pretty sure everybody I've ever said Chico State to, they automatically know, oh, that's a party school, which is not true. But the communities are different. And so I do want to mention that is, remember that your kids have to live life there. But as far as Kim's original question about resources, I would say don't forget that the college that your kids are looking at also has resources for high school students. And, we took advantage of some of those resources when my kids were in that process, but I also got a little bit more in depth of a look at what kinds of resources there are for high school students. When my daughter was at Humboldt, she actually worked in the administration and admissions office during her sophomore, junior, sophomore and senior years there, because she is her mother's daughter. So she wanted to, see what she could make happen that she saw missing. And so the colleges themselves, they have resources that you might not be aware of. And so putting in a phone call just to say, hey, I'm looking at coming to school there next year or the year after. What do you suggest? A lot of times when you're talking to the students that work there, as an adult, we might feel like, well, I don't want to talk to the junior staff member. I want to talk to the person in charge, or the person who knows it all. Those students working there, they know a lot more than you realize, and they have a unique perspective. So definitely give the colleges a call and see what they have available for your high school student.
Thank you very much. We've got a couple questions in the chat that I'm going to ask of you. So one of the questions is, what is the recommendation for students who don't test well on the PSAT and SATs? They have a GPA over 3.0 but don't test well.
A lot of schools that are test optional. I would definitely have her look at a lot of the Cal States, because if her grades are that good, she's going to have a good chance of getting into several places. The kids always, I think if you can get her to actually look on the website of a lot of Cal States and actually look at different majors and see what it actually says on like the department page, like this is what's going on in sociology, or this is what's going on in education. Look at the career center part of a college's website. You can see who's coming to this campus to hire kids. There's also a website called 16personalities.com. It's pretty accurate and pretty fun to do if kids have never done it. It'll really give her a lot of insight as to her personality, and then kind of funnel her into things that she might be good at as a career.
I would just like to add that as the kids are talking to each other in school, they're talking to their friends and talking about where they're applying and where they've been accepted and what they're choosing. Often our kids feel a lot of pressure to sort of keep up with their friends and where their friends are applying and where their friends are getting into and committing to and all of that. And, I would just like to say, being someone who has worked for over 10 years now in a very STEM focused arena, unless your kid is going into a field where there is a certain school that specializes in that field, or for some reason there's a certain thing that your kid needs to be a part of. For example, my husband's cousins, their family just moved from Oregon to Georgia because Georgia had a specific program that their daughter needed to be a part of. And so unless it's a scenario like that, I would say worry less about, how big that name of that school is. I know a lot of people put a lot of weight behind those big monument name schools. And I think that's where we run into a little bit more of that emphasis on all of the different things that you've got to do for college and all of that. But, I would say having a good understanding of what the college offers and what the right fit for your child is. And you'll probably find that we're stressing about test scores a lot more than we really need to.
I agree.
The other piece I would add to that too is I had my son, or together we would look up the schools, and then you could look at their trends for freshman application and acceptance rates. And so it tells you the average, how many apply each year, how many were accepted, and those that were accepted what the average GPA and SAT scores were, or whether they do an ACT, or, because sometimes they recommend that if they don't do too well with the SATs. And also too, if she's a junior, another, resource I would recommend is that she registered for the SAT questions on their phone on a daily basis, because it sends them like practice testing, and it really starts to develop their cognizance of how the questions are framed and how they're answering versus the actual answers. Most of the time it's either lack of preparation or fear of testing. And so I think the more you can expose her to the type of questions and testing in that atmosphere could potentially increase her scores. And then even seeing that some of the schools she's looking to go to may not be requiring those top tier scores, and that she still has potential to get in with, a little bit less of a score.
Just one final thought on that. I wanted to also share that, sometimes it's good to have students volunteer or work on certain projects like gifts and talents that they can speak about in those admissions. Because although they, universities do look at GPA and they do look at SAT scores, they also are looking at what the student is going to, how they're going to contribute to their campus. And so, if a student is interested in outdoors things, how can they get connected to a community service project? Maybe that'll inspire her to then want to do a concurrent enrollment class next summer, something to do with that. And that then her doing that concurrent enrollment next summer, she does really well in college because she likes it. She can also add that to her application. So it's kind of creating this package of, each student is individually filled with academics, gifts and talents, and, that kind of increases their chances and makes them more of a competitive candidate.
And that concurrent enrollment class will boost her confidence. Just a couple other things. I hope if she's wanting to study for the SAT again, she's using the free resources on Khan Academy, because that actually populates how they will prep her based on her PSAT score. So they already know her strengths and weaknesses. So it's not going to waste any time trying to make her work on something she's already good at. Plus, since she's a junior, please take her to visit COD, walk her around that campus, look into their programs. I know all of us on this phone call tonight have lots of amazing stories of kids who went to College of the Desert and are gone on to their dream schools and couldn't be happier. And also please look at the local Cal State San Bernardino campus and all of the great things that they have going on over there. And, go meet one of their admission counselors like Avicinia Rodriguez or Brenda Machuca, but maybe expose your daughter to some of our local things. And even if she doesn't stay local, they will have lots of good resources to share with her.
Very cool. So another question in the chat, and this is from Leanna. How do you go to college debt-free? How does that work? I'm a sophomore and I'm still learning how this stuff works. And I know, Christina, that's a passion you have about scholarships.
Yes, so I get excited because I think there's FAFSA that can help you, right? But because you're a sophomore, you're like at such a wonderful stage right now where you can take advantage either of the dual enrollment on your campus, or you can do the concurrent enrollment. And Brian Thompson at COD is amazing. He has been a lifesaver to me and our daughter, my daughter, with that. So I would encourage you to look at a concurrent class, connect with Brian Thompson. You will have to connect with your high school counselor to do it. So it's kind of like a little triangle. You have to work with your high school counselor. You have to work with Brian. There's a very simple, but navigating it. It's a simple application you fill out every term. And then you decide what classes you want to do. And the way that we're doing it with my daughter is I told her, let's keep it simple. Let's pick 3 schools that you're considering transferring to, because I can't do like a plan for 20 schools. So she's picked UCs and she's picked privates and 1 out of state. And so that, we're kind of navigating it more for the UCs because they even have a transfer program, a transfer, and I can't think of the name right now. You go on there, you put your COD class and it tells you it transfers over. But it slipped my
like articulation.
Articulation, but it's a UC. Is
it the ADT to transfer, associate degree for transfer?
It's the assist me. Correct?
Yes.
Yeah, it's a website that correlates, assist.org or something like that.
Assist.org. So there's a couple of things to answer your question. Connect with your counselor because you're going to need their signature. connect with Brian Thompson. He's on the director, or I'm happy to find it right now and put his email there. Your parents are also going to have to sign it because you are a minor and this is a higher ed institution. So it's a commitment between the school, the COD, the parents, and you as a student. And my recommendation is start with a class that you think you can enjoy. Or my daughter did like a computer class to get her, computer skills savvy, because I know that sometimes you're going to need that a lot in college. But I can also put the class that she started with, and she loved it, and she's glad that she started with that class because it's made her other classes a lot more easy. But that would be my recommendation, because you could actually go to COD for free. And by the time you get to your senior year, if you plan it accordingly, you could have a semester, a year, or even almost 2 years, depending on what your personal plan is. And that's a cost savings at the end of the day. So, yeah.
Excellent. Another question in the chat. I have a senior student. She has 19 schools on her list to apply to. Are there any suggestions for triage questions I can pose to her to help her narrow her list down?
I would start with what they each cost per year to attend. Start narrowing there based on your family's capacity. And then if they're all affordable, then maybe more like around specific of concentrations. Like, is there a school that, has a concentration over another that has the type of programs they offer? And then I think some of the things we talked about is like, where are they at? Is this a place that you think she'll be or he'll be able to thrive? And their type of personality, the whole, like that wholesome person, right? Because like I know, like for my son, he's an extrovert. If I send him to this like little woodsy little place and there's no one to engage with and it's really quiet, he would come home right away. So I think, that's a good starting points for me. If I had to do it with 19 colleges, I'm glad my son didn't have 19 on his list, but I would start with where are the costs? What do each cost? Then what are you thinking you want to do? Which ones match that? And then look at deeper level stuff like what are the communities like? How far is it? What's the feasibility if there's like flying? Like if you're having to fly each time back and forth, can we, can the family afford things like that? So maybe some of the basics and within it the specifics of the college itself might be helpful to narrow some down.
Yeah, well, two things I would add. I mentioned earlier about what school and life will look like in the community. But one of the things that I had my kids do is I said, close your eyes and picture college. And I didn't say a specific school. I just said, picture college. What does that look like to you? And, I myself, I've been to a few different schools now at this point in my life, but when I graduated from high school, I went to FITM in San Diego, which if you're unaware, FITM in San Diego at that time was located in downtown San Diego. So I went to school, I lived and I worked in San Diego proper. And, coming from the Coachella Valley at that time, it was quite a culture shock for me to suddenly have to get on the freeway to go to the grocery store and live life there. So that's for sure. But thinking a little bit further ahead in their college life and career, if your child has even the tiniest interest in spending a year abroad when they are juniors in college, this is the time to think about that and talk about that. And as a parent, I have to say, if your kid says, yes, I want to go to Italy when I'm in college, I want to spend a year in France or whatever that ends up, take a deep breath and remind yourself that they will be okay and talk about that with them. Because one of the best things we did for my daughter was that she knew that she was going to want to spend a year abroad. And so when she was choosing colleges, she made sure to apply to schools that had a program as part of the school itself that coordinated all of that. And that ended up saving us so much time and money because there are certainly plenty of private programs that will help your student go to school in another country for a year. But by using the school's program, she was able to use her financial aid for the school for that year, and that paid for her dorm, and it also paid for her tuition at the school in Wales. She spent a year in Wales, and so by doing it through the school, it made life so much easier, and it made that possible for her financially, because at that point in time, you know, it would not have been possible for my husband and I to bankroll a year in Wales for her, as much as we loved the idea. So thinking ahead a couple of years might also play a big factor in narrowing down which schools you actually apply to.
Good point.
Yeah, and I put a PDF in the chat because next week it has the sessions that are coming up for this week and next week. But next week on Tuesday during the day, Kevin Bibo from Desert Sands Unified and Oscar Fonseca from CSUSB are going to do a session on how to pick your college and major with your career goals in mind. So getting students to help think backwards from what is it I'm really great at and I want to do, and then think about their skills, and then think about what schools have programs, and then narrow it back to the college. So just a plug for that, because it could be another sort of discerning tool there. The other thing, Lynette, I wanted to, maybe you could touch on is the WUI system for colleges outside of California that honor in-state tuition.
Yeah, the WUI is a really good thing to know about, the Western Undergraduate Exchange. I wish it was like one size fits all with the WUI, but it's not. Some schools will offer it to a student if they get into any major. Some students will only offer it to students who get in to a particular major, and every school can do what they want with it. For example, Colorado State uses the WUI as a merit scholarship. They say, we'll give you in-state tuition, you know, plus 50% if you got this GPA and this test score. That's how they want to do it. North Dakota State gives the WUI to everybody who gets in because it's North Dakota State and they want to use that to attract kids to go there. But a lot of the WUIs really are wonderful. Like the University of New Mexico has a wonderful WUI program. They will give lots and lots of money to kids from California. So if you are thinking about going out of state, definitely look at the WUI. It's Western Undergraduate Exchange. I'll try to, the website is like wiche.edu. That's the Western, anyway.
I just added the link to help find the colleges that offer it to the chat.
Thank you. And
I always get kids though, the disappointing thing though is the kids will say like, I'm going to go to the University of Oregon and I'm going to use the WUI, and those big popular schools, the flagship schools, they don't offer the WUI because they don't need to. But there's lots of little gems within that system. So if you are looking at out-of-state schools, do your homework on the Western Undergraduate Exchange. And then also remember, if you're thinking of going out of state, it's going to be the private schools that are going to have more money for you, not the big public institutions, because they're going to focus on giving their money to their residents' kids, right? But if it's a private school, then they're going to have money for your gifts and your talents and your grades and all of that. Mm-hmm.
Yeah, and I'll just add, I have 3 girls who all went to school. They all ended up at Gonzaga, strangely enough, but loved that experience. And I want to echo what Maria said. If a year abroad is something you're interested in, I would explore that at the colleges, because my oldest daughter did that. She did a semester in Florence, but the schools also work with them on the credits, so that if they help them make the decision based on what major they're pursuing. So if your student is a STEM major, sometimes doing those year abroads can be difficult, and they might want to think about doing it over a summer session, over a winter session. So just know that that's something else to consider. And I think another hidden gem that we discovered was Northern Arizona University in Flagstaff. They're a WUI school, and I know of several students who've gone there and have really done well. And it fell into that more affordable range because of the WUI. So.
Also to NAU, real quick, because my son almost went there, has the Connected Community College. It's CCC, can't think of it, that's a different name, but they actually have, because of some of the impacted majors and to help families with cost, they can sign up at the community college and also take courses. It's like hybrid. So they take courses at the community college and courses at the NAU campus, and they count towards the entire 4 years, but it reduces the per unit cost. And if a student, for example, had a harder time going straight into the 4-year program because of SAT scores or certain grade drops, that allows them to get the 4-year experience, but still come registered in through the community college. And so it's kind of like a win-win. I did a lot of research to find that place, and I was very pleased. Although he didn't end up there, I always share it because it was one of the few places I found that had that program.
Yeah, and I don't know if you're going to ask about scholarships, Kim, but I also tell students I wanted to, along with all these programs, concurrent enrollment, I tell students that when they're in college or when they're about to embark in college, the only time that people, organizations, nonprofits are going to want to basically finance their dreams is during college. And so, one of the things that I tell students, look at your options as we're talking now, but also don't stop looking for scholarships and start early, because that's sometimes the last thing that, we think about. So we do, admissions, we do financial aid, and somewhere along the line, we forget, hey, wait, we still might have a gap. And so let's do scholarships. You can actually start applying to scholarships as early as 13 years old. And what happens is that money's saved for you. There's a site, it's unigo.com, where students can actually do that. There's different amounts, there's different scholarships that you have to do, but there's money out there. And many times, as you know, Kim and Ernie, who's on right now, there's a lot of money that's left on the table because students don't apply. And so I always tell students, don't eliminate yourself from the process, let the process eliminate you. And get good at writing thank you letters and connecting with people, because I've known students who are male students get scholarships that are geared for females. And so I want to say that because I think, cost and all of that is very important. But I think if you plan it well, you can also get, money to support you where you plan on being for college.
Well, and Christina is great for the students on this call, that it's your job really to go out and look for scholarships. And you can do that, as she said, ongoing. And I want to put a plug in then for two things. Every year when Future, all of the high schools in the Valley have a Battle of the High Schools FAFSA completion campaign. So students, when you're in high school, know that starting in the fall, in October, you can complete the FAFSA. And in order to qualify for financial aid, you're going to need to do that as part of your college application process. So make sure that you do that early. And then the other thing is apply to through the One Future scholarship portal for local scholarships through One Future, and share that resource again with your friends. Even if you're not selected for a scholarship, you'll still have access to a whole host of resources that we're able to connect you to through our partners. I don't know, Ernie and Christina, if you want to say anything more about that.
I think you covered it all, Kim. So, that's good. Yeah.
Well, one of the things on scholarship, if I have a couple, I'd love to add is it comes down to organizing yourselves and helping the kids be organized, because most of the time what happens is like they find out about a scholarship and it's due tomorrow. And then when they open the portal to the scholarship, it says they need 3 letters of reference or they need transcripts. And guess what? It's not going to happen in 24 hours. So what I did with my son, mind you, my son had visual impairment. So my partnership with him might be a little bit different than yours. But we actually organized every scholarship that he potentially could apply for. Then we did a calendar on his phone of when applications were due, and we preset plans in advance. In his last 4 years of college experience, he's had 7 different scholarships awarded to him. And he has actually pretty good results. And so most of the time it's like 1 to 10, right? So I always tell students that if you need to do 1 to 10, what are those first 10 you're going to look to target? And so I always tell them, start with what's the obvious. Okay, if you're Hispanic, like Hispanic female, Hispanic males. If you're African-American, African-American students. So start by those categories, then look at potentially specific majors, first generation, like any type of, try to find a cluster that you can you know, and then go general, like the Budweisers, the Miller Coors Light, One Future Coachellas, all those, right? And if they can come up with a good list of 25, then what I would do is I would have my son, you know, when you do you save on the computer, you bookmark. I would bookmark each of the websites for the scholarships, and I would save the bookmark with the username and password on there and the date it was due. So that way, all he had to do was drop down his bookmark and everything was there saved. And he just had to click, 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 because sometimes our kids are lazy. Let's just be honest. Like, it's too much work, right? And so the way I looked at scholarship was like, the more scholarships he gets, the more less money I have to put out. So if I have to help him a little bit, that's okay. And so, you know, just really that partnership, because it's scary. They've got a lot going on, like decision making, life altering changes coming on top of trying to apply for college, essays, but really even getting ahead of it, knowing I need 3 recommendation letters. They should have already had that. I still use my son's from his senior year. They're still good because, you know, they haven't said that they need to be within the last year. So get all that ready. And then I ordered like 10 transcripts. And I just had them ready to go because sometimes they ask you to mail them in. So I just had them, and, you know, things like that. Like I know one of the questions was like, what did you learn? What would you have done different? Like if I wouldn't have done all the research and found that up front, it would have been so much more difficult for him to land any of those scholarships and be prepared for them.
Just one quick comment on just piggybacking off what Ida just said. A brag sheet is excellent because that's going to help you. And I'm going to put one, like kind of a sample on there, you know, because then it gives the student, as Ida was mentioning, some responsibility, independence, and it also builds their confidence because they start writing down what their gifts and talents are. And they're like, wow, this is who I am. I'm kind of cool. And so when you start seeing that light bulb turn on, they start, you know, being more accountable for deadlines and all of that. So I like using the brag sheet too, because I tell my daughter, if you don't track it, you're going to forget about it. And these are highlights that you want to share, whether it's for a scholarship or for, you know, in admissions in the future. So I kind of put a sample there. OFCV has one as well. We're happy to share the one we've developed also. But I just wanted to echo Ida's comments.
Thank you very much. And we've got about 6 minutes left, and we're going to do that drawing. Ricardo's going to queue up our wheel of fun so we can draw for some certificates for you. But how about just a quick whip around with our 4 panelists about words of encouragement that you'd offer for students and parents as they embark on this? Because I know when I started out, it was, especially about this time of year, I was like, oh my goodness, I don't know. So any words of encouragement that you can offer based on having made it through?
Patience.
Well, what was that, Maria?
I said patience. Yeah. You know, patience is not in my wheelhouse, but boy, did I learn. And sometimes it's patience for your child as a person. You know, realizing that they're sometimes ready to fly from the nest, but not necessarily wanting to leave home at the same time, and understanding how things are very exciting, and they might wake up one day and say, I want to go here, and then the next day they wake up and they say, no, I don't. And so sometimes as parents, we have to help them you know, kind of get off of the hamster wheel, take a breath, and look at things rationally and calmly, and realize that this is the next 4 years of your life, but it is only the next 4 years of your life. You're not committing the rest of your life to this. And so I think as parents, when we are reminding them, hey, did you email so-and-so about your recommendation letter? Hey, did you get that form turned in? Did you know, the deadline is coming up. You know, also remember that they're people, they're humans, they have feelings, and they're not always great at expressing them. So it's our job as the adult to help them navigate that as kindly as we can.
Wonderful. Thank you.
Wonderful.
Lynette, what do you think?
Where you go to school will not determine your level of success or your happiness in life. It's all about what you do where you go, and the connections that you make and the relationships that you build, and picking yourself up when you fall and learning from that and growing. So yeah, the more we can take pressure off of kids, just, you know, we have so many amazing schools in this country, you know, that just, it's finding that place where they're going to be happy. And I know that's the hardest part, but I never want a child to think that I have to go to this certain school to make my life be what I want it to be, because that's just not true, you know.
Great. Thank you very much. Ida, quick thought on.
Yeah, I was just gonna say, you know, I know a lot of parents, this is a scary time, and sometimes because you've either been away from this college going process, and it's changed so much, even if you did go to college, and it's scary. But even if you just ask some little questions, but keep them consistent to make sure they're on track. And we tell this to our community members too. It's like things like, how many classes are you taking? How many units are you taking? You know, knowing that in order for them to graduate on time, they need to do so many units. And sometimes not all kids can do 15 units per quarter, but if they didn't, you know, maybe did 12, maybe they do a couple of classes during the summer. But know that your child should be completing 30 units a year in order to complete college on time. And if they stay longer than 4 years, then that's going to cost you a lot more money and a lot less earning potential. So that keeps, it's like a snowball effect. But at the same time, you need to know your child. Like my son will be graduating at 5 years. We knew that coming in because of his disability. We had to alter his schedule. And when he had difficult classes, we said, okay, you know what? You're only going to take 1 or 2 this time, but then you're going to ramp it up. And so he went from taking 2 classes to as many as 5 in 1 semester. And so it was really just knowing what his capacity was, but keeping engaged in like, what's working, what's not working. Are you taking the right amount of classes? The way I see it is, if I have to give my taxes till he's 24 and graduated, then I can ask all the questions I want. So still give them liberty, still give them the ability to be themselves and grow, but hold them accountable, you know, because it's a big decision for the entire family. So I tell them, if you're not working, your job is to get through school and get good grades. So I need to ask all the questions. So even if they're little one, if you don't feel you know all this navigation process we've been bringing you through, it's okay. Just ask a couple small questions to keep engaged and make sure they know you're paying attention and supporting them. So
Awesome. Thank you. Christina, wrap us up.
I echo everything that all our, you know, panelists have said. And I'm sharing with Milena, because she's still in high school. You know, I'm sharing with her, fail a lot, because, you know, you can't win at everything. But if you learn that failure is success, you're gonna be okay with trying tons of things. So I tell her, don't quit. You know, that to me is failure when you quit. So that's the number one thing I would say. Tell your students and your children not to be afraid. I mean, being afraid, fear will keep you from doing what you really want. So that's one. The other thing is that it's an individual journey. Although it is with your family, it's not going to match up with what everyone else is doing. So if you're in a race and you're keeping up with whatever everyone else is doing, you're losing seconds. So keep your eyes on your personal journey, and not compare yourself to other students, because it's like I said, very individual. And I agree with Lynette. No one ever asks you once you graduate from college, they don't really ask you where you started, or, you know, they just ask you for the BA. So I think the fact of getting a bachelor's degree, wherever it is, if you start at a community college or go straight to a university, finish. That is going to be your reward. So those would be my 3.
Wow, this was awesome. I can't thank you guys enough. I can't think of a better panel of folks to share their ideas and experience. And if you've had a chance, the chat has some amazing resources in it. So what we'll do is we'll transcribe all of those and we'll email them back out to you, so that you have them as a follow-up. And then again, I really encourage you to share this webinar series with family, friends, colleagues, students, because there's a lot of things, I think, as you've experienced tonight, that are really valuable for you. So thank you for being with us. Thank you to our panelists. You're amazing.